Happy Wednesday! What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Finding Hope podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Bundy, and as always, I'm so happy you're here. I hope your day is going great. I hope you walk away from this episode feeling even better, feeling more encouraged and more excited about what you're doing and the steps you're going to take after listening to this. If you are new here, welcome to our little family and sisterhood that's all about growth and chasing after positive change, making noticeable differences in our lives and living out each and every day in the way I believe God designed for us, that we're walking with such confidence, such success, such clarity, such vision, and such purpose. So I'm so excited you're here, and let's break free from anything that might be holding us back. If you have not already, please make sure to rate this podcast and leave a review. It literally means the world. And I have an exciting little announcement. There's now a feature where you guys can actually join the podcast team and support us. So in this episode description or on any of our socials, there will be a link where you guys can support the podcast and you can contribute to the podcast and just help us reach more people than we are and make an even bigger impact through you guys. So super excited about that. Be sure to check that out. This episode was kind of inspired by a conversation I was having with my mom. She recently came to visit me, and best trip ever. So fun. But we had many conversations when she was here. In my family, we are all big talkers. We love thinking. We love deep conversations. We love just taking a idea or a topic and really doing a deep dive. And so one of the conversations that got brought up was how a lot of people we know, or I have been in this stage in my life, where you feel a little stuck. And especially in the creative circle, I feel like definitely with my friends that are creatives, as a creative myself, when I started getting into kind of using my creativity, there's a lot that can kind of come with waiting for the perfect time, making sure you're producing a perfect product. And so today, the episode is all about starting now and letting the perfection follow. We are going to discuss when to start, how to start, if you've already started, how to get to where you want to go, and how to not let any doubts, any bumps in the road, any circumstances get in the way that make you feel like you need this perfect time or this perfect product or this perfect scenario for you to actually carry out what you want to carry out. I think we all know there is no perfect time to start pursuing something or to start doing something, but I think even though we might know that there's no perfect time, we can get so stuck in waiting for things to be almost perfect before we start. Or we could get so stuck in what we're working on and trying to get it to where we are so proud of it, where we aren't questioning it, where we're so confident in what we're doing before we either maybe talk about it, before we put it out, before we show someone, before we really run with it. And I think we all know perfection doesn't really exist. And if you're a perfectionist, I'm so sorry. I'm sure that's not fun to hear. But I feel like for the most part, if we were to really ask ourselves, can this be better? The answer is always yes. I feel like in everything I do, the answer is always yes. It could always be better. Whatever I'm doing could always be better. But can it be perfect? And I think for me, the answer is no. I don't think that there's going to be something that is absolutely perfect. I wouldn't change an ounce of it, of something I've created or of an idea I've had or of my attempt at solving something or mending a relationship. I think the only perfection comes from God, and God is the only thing that is perfect. And He calls us to strive for perfection, but I think it's important to realize and understand that we can always do better, but if we're only going to produce what's perfect, and if we're only going to step into an uncomfortability when it's the perfect time, we're going to spend our whole lives waiting. That is why I'm all about having imperfect action instead of perfect inaction. And what I mean by that is it's way more important to take action than to spend your time waiting for the perfect moment. I believe progress and getting to the place where you feel like you're reaching perfection is made through a process of trial, of error, of determination, and of experimentation. I read this quote, never thought I would be quoting Michael Jordan, but here we are. He said, I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. I love this quote, you guys, because for me personally, and this is kind of what I was talking to my mom about, is when I have started almost anything in my life, but I would say when I got into social media, I posted a ton. If you guys have followed me since the start, you've seen the videos, and I was so determined, and I didn't, honestly, at that time, I didn't really have any sort of direction of my own. I was listening to what other people thought I should be doing, but I didn't really have my own vision or direction, and that never would have came if I sat and waited and just tried to get that before I started. I just kind of had an idea. I went with it. I rolled with it. I made so many videos I would never make now. I did so many things I would never do now. It's so cringy to the point where I won't even look back and watch my old stuff because I'm absolutely shook at the fact that I thought it was either good at the time or that I even posted it, and that's out there for the world to see. I'm like, Kayla, what were you thinking? Like, I can't even go back and watch because it makes me cringe so much. It's so funny. But I'm so glad I did, because I would never be to the point I'm at now. I would never be making the videos I'm making now. I would never be doing the things I'm doing now, having the vision that I have, having the confidence I have, having the equipment, the ability, the knowledge that I have now, if I did not do that. And it was so imperfect. It was one of those things where, I failed and failed over and over and over again. And that's why I'm succeeding in a way that I'm proud of. And had I not just stepped out and been like, this is a desire, or this is a goal, or whatever it was for me at that time, had I sat and just tried to perfect it from the start, or not even that, because it took me about, I'd say at least a year and a half until I think I posted anything I was actually proud of. And so during that time, had I not been practicing, had I not been stepping into that uncomfortability, had I not been in this trial phase, I would not have learned and understood the things I do now. And it made me appreciate my creativity and my capability so much more, knowing, hey, I really had no clue what I was doing. And I'm at the place now where I'm sure, honestly, I'm going to look back in 2 years from now, and I'm going to look back at these videos or look back at what I'm doing now and be like, oof, we're cringing again. We've moved on. We've improved. And that's good. That's life. Like, I think that's good if that is my thoughts. I guess when I look back in a couple of years, we'll see. But I think I value that more, that I can look back and see my growth, versus if I didn't have that and it was the exact way I wanted it from the start, I wouldn't have learned everything I've learned. I wouldn't have the confidence to see the progression in myself that I've had. I wouldn't have the insight and the ability to help others, because I've done it the ways I wish I didn't do, because I've experimented in the things that taught me how I can expand in other ways. And what my goals looked like a year or two ago are drastically different now because I stepped into it. And it was not perfect. It was never perfect. It still is never perfect. I just want to emphasize the importance of starting and the importance of continuing, because I think where I've seen a lot of people get so stuck is they start and it's amazing that they've started and they've crossed that bridge into the unknown, pushing themselves, challenging themselves. It's scary, it's new, and it could be in any field. I mean, this could be in a relationship, this could be in a friendship, this could be in the degree you've decided to pursue or the job that you just took. But it's exciting when it's new, and that kind of gives you this momentum. But then when you're not seeing results, or you're not feeling like you're getting a response that you want and that you desire, that's where I see so many people either pivot or give up and change. And that's where I want to stress the importance of, hey, amazing if you start that, amazing if you cross into the unknown and the uncomfortability, but don't be looking for any sort of response from anyone or yourself to give you the approval to keep going. Because if you're looking for approval to keep going or validation to keep going, it's either probably going to take you in a direction you don't want to go, or it's going to feel almost impossible to get there. Because I did not get the approval that I may have thought I needed or wanted. I just was very set on, we're making this work no matter what. And when I was in those phases where I was looking for that approval from either the people watching my stuff or the people around me that were better at what I was doing, and when I was seeking those people's opinions, their approval, their validation, whatever that was, the stuff I was producing and creating was awful, terrible, would never do again. It was like so not me and just not the direction I would have taken had I been able to silence the noise. And I think when you step into something, you're going to get some noise. And that's good, because if you never step into it and if you don't feel like you have noise in your life, it's probably because you aren't actually continuing and being consistent in the things that you want to change or to achieve or to step into. You're going to have noise because when you're doing something, people are always going to have something to say about it. If you're not doing things and no one's saying anything, that's not a great sign. And so I think having noise is a good sign that you're actually taking action in something. But then I think silencing that noise and not reliant on that noise of if you should continue or not is so important, because you have to get to a place where you're okay with things sucking, with things being maybe a little embarrassing, with being uncomfortable, with being criticized. And at that point where it really doesn't matter what anyone else has to say or think, whether they're praising it or whether they're stomping on it, because your reasoning is so strong. And the more you do it, the more you learn how much more you can actually do. When I started, I had no idea what a job or career in social media even looked like. I had no idea how to fill my days. I had no idea what goals I should have for myself. I had no idea what type of things I wanted to do or where I could go with it or the things that I could start from social media. I was completely clueless. And it was over time that I just kept being consistent that I started to slowly see, oh, maybe this should be a goal for me. Oh, I didn't even know this was possible. Now I know how to maximize my days. Or feeling like I had way more dreams than I ever thought I was going to once I stepped into it and once I was consistent in it. Because if I just went from 0 to 100, I don't think my brain could create the goals and dreams I have for myself now if I didn't go through that whole process. And I fully believe that right now as well. I think if I don't stay consistent in these things, if I don't have these short-term goals for myself, it's going to be harder for me to dream even bigger and for me to achieve even more goals for myself if I can't even attain the small ones I've put in place. Because when I feel like it's kind of stepping stones, I feel like you keep leveling up. And so every time you keep leveling up in something you're stepping into and you're staying consistent in, there's always another step. And you can't always see 10 steps ahead. I can't, anyways. That's me. I can't always see 10 steps ahead. But I can see that there's a step in front of me. And once I take that step and I get to that step and I'm standing confidently on that step, then I see, oh, I'm actually not at the top. There's like still a couple more steps ahead that I could take. And then I get there and the same thing. And it just keeps on going. But if I never took that step, I would never see how far I could actually get. Ecclesiastes 11:4 says, "Farmers who wait for the perfect weather never plant. If they watch every cloud, they never harvest." So don't be like those farmers that never plant, that are noticing every bump, every cloud in the sky, hesitant to start because it might rain, hesitant to take action because of what could come next, because of the uncertainty, or even because they know a storm's coming, because they know something is going to mess up their crop if they were to plant now. I encourage you, just start planting. Just start planting. And the seeds that aren't meant to grow are not going to. The seeds that are going to. And if you never start, you're never going to see the growth you could have. Again, though, it's not just about starting. It's about continuing. You have to water those seeds. Once you plant something, you can't just put it in the ground, cover it up, and walk away and say, hey, great, I stepped into something new. I already did that, and now let me sit back and I'm just going to hope that it sprouts and it grows into this super strong tree that's unshakable. No, you have to water that daily. You have to pour into that daily. It's not just about accepting there's no perfect time to start and starting now. It's about accepting, okay, but maybe there also isn't a perfect process and a perfect product, but I can still be obedient and diligent and a good steward of the skill sets, the emotions, the reactions, the thoughts that I have right now to water this thing in my life every day, even though it's not perfect, even though I'm not watering it perfectly. God covers our impurities. He covers a multitude of sins. He covers a multitude of our mistakes. He covers a multitude of our failure. And so we have that in the Lord. He's going to bring life out of the things that we're trying to create. And even though if it's not perfect, what we're pouring into and what that product looks like, that's what's beautiful, is because God can come in and God can use that. He can still use our imperfections. He uses our imperfections every single day. And so why wouldn't he use our imperfections in the things that we feel a little scared about? A takeaway for you guys that I've personally found very helpful for me is I am always striving for something better, for growth. I know I can always do better. I know I should always be doing better. I can definitely place a lot of pressure on myself or feel like I'm never doing enough. I definitely have that. I feel like if you're in an entrepreneurial environment or really anything, I feel like that a lot of responsibilities weigh on your shoulders. It can maybe be easy to get caught in that, and especially if it is your craft, because when it's something you're creating, that it's you, and it's not with the help of other people, or it's not coming from someone else, it can feel like, well, this is a representation of me, and so I want it to look incredible. I want it to be incredible. I want it to be impressive. I want it to be perfect because it's an extension of who I am. And so that reflects back onto who I am. And it's almost like a mirror. It can feel like it's almost a mirror. And so with that, I think that can create a lot of time wasted in really making sure you're developing something and really sitting in this developmental phase instead of a production phase. And so, and what I mean by that is I think it can cause us to sit in things longer, to think on things longer, to nitpick every little thing, and to be so obsessed with what that result's going to look like, giving more of our time and energy into the minute details that in the long run aren't going to matter, instead of actually just putting it out there, realizing, hey, it's okay if this isn't perfect because I'm not perfect. And so if that's not an accurate representation of me, that's okay, because I'm going to grow and my stuff's going to evolve and my stuff is going to always improve. I personally think it's better to put out and to learn along the way than to never put anything out at all. And so what's been very helpful for me in starting and stepping into that uncomfortability, but then staying consistent in it, is I will not let myself look at something for more than 2 or 3 times. And I will not let myself record a video or whatever it is that I'm going to put out more than 2 or 3 times. Once I hit that, and if I'm really displeased with what I did, I won't put it out. I'm like, all right, it's fine. I took the L, but it's not worth me pouring hours and all of my energy into this one little thing that's just a stepping stone in the direction I'm trying to get. And it's better and it's more helpful for me if I can go, okay, you know what? I was not able to achieve what I wanted to achieve in the time that I had set for myself. Instead of dwelling on that and pouring more and more and more time in, I can actually learn, okay, what was the issue? Why didn't I produce a result I was proud of in the amount of time I wanted to produce it? Because that's going to give me way more insight into actually achieving results that are closer to perfection instead of dwelling on one thing. Because that one thing, I could make that absolutely as close to perfect as possible, be so proud of it, yet I'm going to have another thing that I'm going to get stuck in the same problem. I'm going to spend at least the same amount of time, if not more, trying to get that same sort of a result. Versus if I didn't get that result in the time that I wanted, then I can now learn, well, what was it about this whole scenario that kept me from achieving what I wanted to achieve? And that is where I need to put my time, my energy, and my focus, because that's what's going to carry into anything else that I'm trying to do. Was it the style? Was it the time? Was it the environment? Was it what I did beforehand? Was it my mindset going into it? Was it I was distracted? I can identify why I wasn't able to achieve what I want to achieve in the time that I had set, or in the takes that I had set for myself. And then in those times where I have, same thing, given myself the exact same guidelines, and I achieve something that I'm proud of, if I were to keep looking at it, if I were to film it a few times in that time frame I've set, edit it, and then watch it a few times, and if I'm like, okay, I'm happy with this, I'm proud of this, this is good enough, don't think it's perfect, but it's good enough, and I'll continue to get better, and I just put it out, it's way more beneficial for me than if I were to be okay with it, be happy with it, and then keep watching it and keep revisiting it and keep nitpicking it, because what it started as was something I was originally happy with and proud of. Where it's going to end is something I'm never going to let anyone else see, because I know I can do better. I'm seeing all the little things I would change about it. And I'm noticing how it's actually something I don't even think I like anymore. And so I think giving yourselves, for whatever it is you're doing, these are just my personal examples, but I give myself 3 times that I'll film something, and I'll let myself watch it about 3 times. Because if I do more than that, it's wasting my time, it's wasting my energy, and if I wasn't happy with it within that time frame I've set, it's not worth me continuing to go back and to keep giving attention to. And if it was, the more I'm going to watch it, the more I'm probably going to see all the imperfections about it that no one else is going to notice. And if they do, that's fine. Let them notice. It's really okay. It's really okay if people notice your imperfections, because that just will later on become a testimony of how much you've improved. And I find it way more inspiring when I see people's growth than when I only see them doing things exactly right or great every single time. When I can see that there's been growth, I'm way more impressed with their character than if it's just consistent and if it never changes. It never is worse. It's never better. It's just the same and it's always good. To me, it's harder for me to be impressed by that. So I would encourage you to, whatever it is that you feel like, okay, it's hard for me to be consistent in this area, to give yourself some guidelines of, hey, I'm going to set boundaries for myself where I will only let this happen X amount of times. I will only revisit this X amount of times. And if I don't like the way it's turning out, if I don't like the way the conversation's going, because this can totally be in relationships too. And this is also something I've had to learn, is there's not ever going to be a perfect friendship, relationship, family dynamic. And that's okay. That's totally fine. It's always going to require work. And I think that's with almost everything in life. It's always going to require work. There's so much goodness in it, but there's going to be work you have to put in. And that's okay. But I have to justify, well, what's worth working on? And if I give myself those boundaries and those guidelines in any area in my life, it helps me identify what's worth working on. Because if I give myself those boundaries and those deadlines and I'm not getting the results I want in the conversations, in the relationships I'm having, in the scenarios I'm dealing with, if I keep getting results I don't want and that aren't producing the crop that I want to grow, then it gives me some clarity into, okay, this is something I need to move on from. Because if I keep going back to the thing that's giving me the same results and it's never improving, then that's a really good sign of maybe step away, maybe make some changes, maybe reevaluate, reassess, identify the root. Is the root that person? Is the root you? Is the root the distractions in your life? Is the root where you're giving your time? Is the root the things you're watching? Identify the root so that way you can actually start growing a crop that you're going to be proud of. And you're going to want to keep pouring into that because, like I said, things take work. But work is way more enjoyable when you are seeing the fruits of it, and the fruits are fruits that you want to keep producing. If you're producing fruits you don't want to keep producing, it's not going to give you that motivation to want to keep working on it. So I encourage you to just start small and set realistic goals for yourself and practice that consistency. Like I said earlier, it's so much easier when you're choosing to do what you're going to do because of you and not because of anything else, not because of any other noise or any other person. When you're choosing something because that is what God has placed in your heart and that is what's driving you, the more you can tune out and step into it, the better results you're going to produce. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's probably not going to be perfect. And that is something that's okay. And I've really had to learn, it's okay if I get really criticized, or it's okay if what I am putting out is kind of embarrassing, is not that great. I know I could do better because that's always going to be the case. I feel, just an opinion, but I feel I can always do better. I feel there's always more I could do. And if I get stuck in not executing because of that, then I'm never going to execute. I just want to encourage you that there's so much opportunity, so much you're going to learn, and so much that you're going to feel knowledgeable, equipped, and confident in when you allow yourself to remove the perfectionism from it and to just step into it and stay consistent in it. And God promises to direct our steps. God promises to provide for us. And so He's there with you. You're not doing this alone. And He is going to help direct that. He's going to help give you vision in that. He's going to help give you the resources in it. Whatever it is that you feel inadequate in, that's okay, because that's where God comes in. And you'll learn the more you start doing things, you'll see more of where you need God's help. And that's totally been my case. A year ago, I had no idea what help I needed in the podcast. Not a clue. I was really learning as I was going. Now, since I've done it, I've seen, okay, I really need X, Y, and Z. God, I need you to provide in these ways. God, I need a team. God, I need this. God, I need that. I'm able to see the areas that I need his help. Whereas before I started, I had no idea what areas I needed his help. It was just everything. I was like, I don't know, God. I'm just going to need you. And if it wasn't for my obedience stepping into what he called me, I would have never been able to see where I can actually succeed and thrive on my own with his strength, and where I need help and where I still need to fully rely on him. And so you're just going to learn so much by stepping into something and staying consistent in it. I love you guys. I hope this was helpful. Don't forget to rate this show, to leave us a review, and to go and support this podcast. You guys are the best. If you found this episode helpful, it would mean the world to me if you share it with your friends, share it with your family. If there was anyone that came to mind while you were listening, just send it off to them and let God do the work. I love you all. Have the best week, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday.